spoke yesterday to President Erdogan, and I am also in contact with the Swedish and the Finnish government, and we agreed to convene a high-level meeting in Brussels before the summit. This meeting will include foreign ministers, heads of intelligence, and national security advisors. The aim is to make progress in completing Sweden's accession to NATO.
Well, Yucel Acer is a professor of international law at Yildirim Beyazit University. He joins me on the line from Ankara. Welcome. We heard Jens Stoltenberg outlining to some extent there what it is that Turkey wants from Sweden. Restriction on activities of the PKK terror group was something that was said. But do we have more specifics on what the concerns are?
I think there have been a lot of interesting things happening since the start of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. All we remember that when Russia attacked on Ukraine, just 1 week later, Sweden and Finland wanted to become a NATO member, and also the United States and some other major countries in NATO wanted them to include into NATO to establish a stronghold against Russian aggression. That's quite understandable, but Turkey declared at the very beginning that there were some problems with these two countries concerning the fight against terrorism. Turkey is suffering from terrorism for a long time, especially from PKK and some other terrorist organizations. And Turkey, quite understandably, declared that these countries should stop supporting these kind of organizations or allowing the people in the countries who are supporting the terrorist organizations. That's quite understandable. And also, there have been a memorandum of understanding between three countries, Turkey, Sweden, and Finland, about to fight against terrorist organizations. Finland and Sweden, undertook some responsibilities to establish strong legislations and strong activities against terrorist organization members or people who are supporting these kind of organizations. Since then, we have seen that Finland have completed some of its responsibilities by enacting legislations, not only the legislations, but also took some concrete actions against these organizations within Finland. That's why Turkey decided to support the Finland membership into NATO. But there are still many problems with Sweden. It's quite clear that although Sweden has trying to do some concrete, legislations, change the constitution, then they enact a legislation that entered into force at the beginning of this month. This legislation is a promise to punish people who are, members of the terrorist organizations and also supporting these kind of organization activities. That's quite, good development on behalf of Sweden, but still there are problems, as Turkish officials, President Erdogan sometimes emphasize that we haven't seen any concrete action in field to apply this legislation. Just 4 days after the entrance of this legislation into force, we have seen, demonstrations in the Stockholm streets still supporting terrorist organizations. But Swedish government did nothing to prevent these kind of things. And the foreign minister of Sweden himself declared that these organizations are collecting monies and providing finance to the activities of terrorist organizations which are fighting against Turkey. And this quite clear statements from the foreign minister of Sweden. So this is the question that what kind of evidences we will see to name a person as a supporter of terrorist organizations. If that person is going to street and trying to collect money and demonstrate on behalf of terrorist organizations, what kind of evidences we still looking for to name these people as supporters of terrorist organizations? So the problem is in the action. We haven't seen any concrete steps on behalf of Sweden.
So obviously Turkey's support is going to be needed. In the meantime, we have the British Foreign Minister James Cleverly planning to visit Sweden this week. How does his visit fit in with Sweden's accession bid?
The problem here, rather than Sweden is fulfilling its responsibilities as it promised concerning Turkey's fight against terrorism, but Sweden rather tried to, persuade some major countries like United Kingdom and United States to put pressure on Turkey, to get Turkey in the line that Sweden really wanted Turkey to be. That's the problem. Here, it's not Turkey who needs to change its position, but Sweden still needs to change its position. I understand Stoltenberg, before retiring, he would like to say that, yes, he achieved the Swedish membership in the NATO. That's why he came to Turkey just after the election. He met with President Erdogan and saying that Sweden completed its responsibilities. But I think it's still like, playing with some unrealistic cards. Yes, it's not Turkey to change its position. It's still Sweden. Even if United Kingdom's foreign minister visits Sweden and declares its support to Swedish membership, but still in the field, there are some space to go for Sweden to satisfy the Turkish expectations. As we know, Hungary and Turkey still not approved the Swedish membership. I'm sure the high-level meeting that would take place in Brussels this week, the foreign minister of Turkey, Hakan Fidan, will probably say that they still want to see some concrete actions. That's why there will be still some negotiating points, and I just hope that Sweden is, ready to take these steps rather than try to, persuade the United Kingdom and the United States to put more pressure on Turkey. That's the key issue, I think, in this point. Mm-hmm. I think we need to see some further move from Sweden rather than from Turkey. Turkey, quite clearly says that it's not against the Swedish membership. Categorically, it's not against. But Turkey wants to see an action against terrorist organizations from Sweden, because Sweden and Turkey would be in the same alliance. It's not about being an ally, if Sweden is not fighting against terrorist organizations.
Yucel, appreciate you coming on, giving us your analysis. My guest, Yucel Acer, Professor of International Law at Yildirim Beyazit University.